Hello, my friend. Welcome back. Wherever you are right now, maybe you're sitting quietly. Maybe you're walking. Maybe you're listening late at night when the world has finally slowed down. I want you to know something first. You don't need to hurry. You don't need to be perfect. You're exactly where you need to be. Today, I want to share something very personal with you. Something simple, but deeply important. I want to tell you a true story. My own story about how I trained my mind to learn English better. Not faster, not harder, but better. In a way that felt human, sustainable, and kind. This is not a story about talent. It's not a story about intelligence. It's not a story about becoming fluent overnight. It's a story about the mind, about attention, about fear, about patience, and about the quiet changes that happen when we stop fighting ourselves and start listening. When I first began learning English seriously, I believed something that many learners believe. I believed that learning English was mainly about effort, about pushing, about forcing myself to study more, memorize more, practice more. I believed that if I was tired, it meant I wasn't trying hard enough. If I felt confused, it meant I was failing. If I forgot words, it meant something was wrong with me. And maybe you've felt this too. Maybe you've sat in front of a book or a screen and thought, why is this so hard for me? Why do other people seem to improve faster? Why do I understand but can't speak? Why do I freeze when someone talks to me? I remember sitting alone in my room one evening, many years ago. It was quiet, the kind of quiet that feels heavy. I had just finished listening to an English audio lesson for the third time. I understood most of the words. I knew the grammar, and yet, when I tried to speak out loud, nothing came. My mind went blank. My chest felt tight. I felt small. I closed the book. I leaned back in my chair. And I remember thinking, maybe I'm just not good at languages. That thought stayed with me for a long time. But slowly, gently, my relationship with English and with my own mind began to change. Not because I found a better textbook. Not because I discovered a secret method. But because I started paying attention to how my mind actually works. One morning, I was walking outside very early. The air was cool. The streets were quiet. I wasn't listening to anything. No music, no podcast, just my footsteps and my breathing. And suddenly, without trying, an English sentence appeared in my mind. A simple sentence, something like, "The morning feels calm today." It surprised me. I hadn't planned it. I hadn't forced it. It just arrived, and in that moment, I realized something important. My mind hadn't stopped learning English. It had been learning quietly, in the background, even when I felt stuck. That was the beginning of a shift. From that day, I started asking different questions. Not how can I study more, but how can I listen better? Not how can I memorize faster, but how can I feel more comfortable? Not how can I control my mind, but how can I train it gently? Let me tell you about one small habit that changed everything. I stopped trying to understand everything. That might sound strange, especially coming from an English teacher, but it's true. I realized that my mind was exhausted from constant pressure. Every time I listened to English, my brain went into attack mode. Understand everything. Translate everything. Don't miss anything. And that kind of thinking creates tension. So one day, I made a quiet promise to myself. I said, today, I will listen without chasing meaning. I will let the words wash over me, like music, like rain. I remember listening to a simple conversation. Two people talking about their day. Normally, I would pause, rewind, analyze, but this time, I didn't. I just listened. I noticed the rhythm, the pauses, the emotion, and something beautiful happened. I felt calm. My shoulders relaxed. My breathing slowed down. And when the audio ended, I realized I remembered more than usual, not individual words, but the feeling of the conversation, the flow. This is something I want you to remember. Your mind learns better when it feels safe. Let's say that together, slowly. Your mind learns better when it feels safe. Try saying it again. Your mind learns better when it feels safe. When you're anxious, your mind protects itself. It closes. It focuses on survival, not learning. But when you feel calm, curious, and accepted, your mind opens naturally. I began to design my English practice around this idea. Instead of long, exhausting study sessions, I chose shorter, gentler ones. Instead of correcting every mistake, I allowed myself to speak imperfectly. Instead of comparing myself to others, I stayed with my own pace. There was another moment that stayed with me. I was in a cafe, ordering coffee. The barista spoke quickly, too quickly. I didn't understand everything, and I felt that familiar panic rising in my chest. That old voice saying, "You're not ready, you're not good enough." But this time, I noticed the feeling without running from it. I took a breath, a slow one, and I said something simple, something imperfect. "Sorry, could you say that again?" A little slower. The barista smiled. She repeated herself. Slower, kinder. And in that moment, I realized something else. Learning English is not about avoiding discomfort. It's about learning how to stay with it. Discomfort doesn't mean danger. It means growth. Let's practice a useful phrase together. A phrase that changed how I interact in English. Could you say that again, please? Say it with me. Could you say that again, please? Notice how polite it feels, how calm it sounds. This sentence is not an apology for your English. It's a request for clarity, and clarity is your right. As my mindset changed, my progress changed too. But it was quiet progress. The kind you only notice when you look back. I noticed that words started coming to me more easily. Not because I memorized them, but because I met them again and again. In stories, in conversations, in moments that mattered. I noticed that my listening improved when I stopped translating in my head. I let English be English. I trusted my intuition. And most importantly, I noticed that I was kinder to myself. There's a sentence I often tell my students, and I want to tell it to you now. You don't need to push your mind. You need to guide it. Repeat it slowly. You don't need to push your mind. You need to guide it. Guiding means creating the right conditions. Calm, consistency, meaning, emotion. Think about how children learn language. They are not studying, they are living. They are listening in safe environments. They are allowed to make mistakes. They are encouraged, not judged. As adults, we forget this. We turn language into a test instead of a tool. One evening, I sat down with a notebook, not to study, but to reflect. I wrote one simple question at the top of the page. How do I want English to feel in my life? Not what level I wanted, not what score I wanted, but how I wanted it to feel. I wrote words like calm, expressive, connected, natural, and from that moment, every decision followed that feeling. If a method made me anxious, I let it go. If a resource felt too aggressive, I stopped using it. If an activity made me feel alive, curious, present, I kept it. This is something I want you to try, gently, in your own way. After listening to this episode, ask yourself one question. How do I want English to feel in my life? There is no correct answer, only an honest one. Let's talk about speaking, because this is where many minds freeze. For a long time, I believed I had to think before I spoke. Think of the grammar. Think of the vocabulary. Think of the structure. But real speaking doesn't work that way. Real speaking comes from trust. I trained my mind by speaking alone, quietly, without pressure. I described my day. I described my thoughts. I spoke slowly. I allowed silence. Sometimes I said things like, today was, how can I say, today was heavy. And that pause, that became my friend, not my enemy. You don't need to speak perfectly. You need to keep the connection alive. Let's try something now. Say the sentence slowly, naturally. Today feels a little heavy. Say it again. Today feels a little heavy. Notice how simple it is and notice how honest it feels. Language becomes powerful when it reflects real experience. As weeks passed, I realized my mind had stopped fighting English. It had started cooperating. I stopped measuring progress daily. I trusted the process. And then, one day, something unexpected happened. I was speaking with someone in English, and I laughed. Naturally, without thinking, without translating, and afterward, I realized I hadn't been trying to speak well. I had been trying to connect. That's when I understood the deepest lesson. English is not something you conquer. It's something you enter. You enter it with patience, with curiosity, with humility. And when your mind feels respected, it gives you more than you ever forced it to give. Maybe you're listening now and thinking, this sounds nice, but I still struggle. I still forget. I still feel afraid. And I want to tell you this honestly. So did I. So do I. Learning never ends. Fear doesn't disappear completely, but it changes shape. It becomes quieter, more familiar, and you become stronger. Before we end, I want to leave you with one small practice. Not a task, not homework, just an invitation. Tonight or tomorrow, take 1 minute, 1 minute only, and say this sentence out loud. I am learning English in my own way, at my own pace. Say it slowly. I am learning English in my own way, at my own pace. Say it again, and really listen to yourself. This sentence is not just English practice, it's mindset training. And that is where real learning begins. Thank you for spending this time with me. Thank you for trusting your ears, your mind, and your heart. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself. And before you turn this off, before you move on to the next part of your day, I want to stay with you a little longer. Just a little. Because there are a few more quiet truths about the mind and language that I learned much later. Things no one told me at the beginning, but things that changed everything once I understood them. For a long time, I believed that my mind was the problem, that it was too slow, too distracted, too emotional, too easily tired. I tried to discipline it, control it, silence it. I treated my mind like an obstacle that needed to be overcome. But one evening, after a long day, I noticed something simple. I was tired. Not mentally tired from English, just tired from life. And yet, as I listened to a familiar English voice, one I trusted, My mind softened. It didn't resist. It didn't complain. It simply listened. That's when I realized something very important. My mind was never my enemy. It was exhausted from being pushed too hard. Learning English didn't fail because I lacked discipline. It struggled because I lacked gentleness. And maybe you recognize this feeling. You want to learn. You truly do. But your energy feels limited. Your motivation comes and goes. Some days you feel strong. Other days, everything feels heavy. This is not laziness, then. This is being human. When I finally accepted this, I changed how I trained my mind. Instead of asking, how much can I study today, I began asking, what can my mind receive today? Some days, the answer was a full story. Some days, it was one sentence. Some days, it was silence, just listening without effort. And all of it counted. Let me tell you about another moment. A small one, but meaningful. I was listening to an English podcast while washing dishes. My hands were busy. My body was relaxed. My attention was soft. I wasn't trying to learn. I wasn't trying to remember. And suddenly, a phrase stood out. It takes time. Just that simple, ordinary. But it stayed with me. I repeated it quietly. It takes time. It takes time. And in that moment, the phrase was no longer just English. It was permission. Say it with me now. It takes time. Again, slowly. It takes time. Your mind absorbs language best when it feels no urgency, no threat, no countdown. That's why I stopped telling myself things like, I must be fluent by this age, or I'm behind, or I'm wasting time. Those thoughts don't motivate the mind. They scare it. And a scared mind does not learn deeply. There is another belief I had to unlearn, and this one was difficult. I believed that mistakes were dangerous. Every time I made one, my body reacted before my mind. My heart beat faster. My face felt warm. My thoughts rushed in. But over time, I noticed something interesting. Native speakers made mistakes too. They paused. They corrected themselves. They searched for words. And no one judged them. The judgment was coming from inside me. So I began training my mind to respond differently to mistakes. Instead of saying, that was wrong, I said, that was communication. Instead of saying, I sound stupid, I said, I'm experimenting. Instead of stopping, I continued. This changed everything. Let's practice a phrase that helps with this mindset. It's okay to take my time. Say it. It's okay to take my time. Say it again and let your shoulders relax as you say it. It's okay to take my time. When your body feels safe, your mind becomes flexible. And flexibility is the true foundation of fluency. Another truth I discovered is this: your mind remembers emotion, not lists. I used to write long vocabulary lists, pages and pages, so I reviewed them again and again. And still, the words disappeared. But when I learned a word inside a story, inside a feeling, it stayed. I remember learning the word quiet, not from a dictionary, but from a moment. Sitting by a window, rain falling softly, the room still, quiet. The word felt like the moment, so my mind kept it. This is why I tell stories. See, this is why I speak slowly. This is why I repeat ideas gently, because your mind is not a machine. It's a living system. And living systems learn through experience. If you want to train your mind to learn English better, don't ask it to memorize more. Ask it to feel more. Feel the calm of a sentence. Feel the honesty of a phrase. Feel the connection of being understood. Let me share something personal now. There were times when I wanted to quit. Completely. I told myself I didn't need English. I convinced myself it wasn't worth the effort. But deep down, I knew that wasn't true. What I really wanted was not English itself. What I wanted was expression. I wanted words for my thoughts. I wanted language for my emotions. I wanted connection beyond borders. And when I remembered that, my motivation changed shape. It became quieter, more stable. I stopped chasing confidence. I focused on familiarity. Confidence comes later. Familiarity comes first. That's why I returned to the same stories, the same voices, the same rhythms, and slowly, English stopped feeling foreign. It started feeling like a place I could rest. If you're listening now and wondering what you should do next, let me make this very simple. Do less, but do it with presence. Listen to one voice you trust. Read one story that feels human. Speak one sentence that matters to you, and do it again tomorrow. This is how the mind learns. Through gentle repetition, through safety, through meaning. Before we end, I want to leave you with one final reflection. Learning English is not a race, it's a relationship. And like any relationship, it grows when there is patience, curiosity, and care. You are not behind. You are not broken. Your mind is not weak. It is learning in its own time, and that is enough. Thank you for walking this journey with me today. Thank you for listening not just with your ears, but with your attention. And even after saying all of this, even after understanding these ideas deeply, there were still days when my mind felt restless, days when English felt far away again, days when I opened my mouth and the words did not come. I want to be honest about that, because real learning is not a straight line. It moves like the ocean, sometimes calm, sometimes rough, always moving. On those difficult days, I learned not to argue with my mind. I stopped asking, "What's wrong with me today?" and started asking a softer question, "What do I need right now?" Sometimes the answer was rest. Sometimes it was silence. Sometimes it was a very simple sentence. There were days when the only English I spoke was something like, "I'm tired today," and that was enough. Say that sentence quietly, just for yourself. I'm tired today. This is real language. This is honest language. And when you allow yourself to speak honestly, your mind relaxes. It stops performing. It starts participating. I also noticed something else over time. My best learning did not happen when I felt motivated. It happened when English became part of my life, not a separate task. I listened while cooking. I listened while walking. I spoke to myself while cleaning. No pressure. No performance. Just presence. My mind began to associate English with normal life, not with stress. This association matters more than you think. If your mind connects English with fear, it resists. If your mind connects English with calm, it opens. That is training. Quiet training. Let me tell you about a small experiment I tried. I decided to stop correcting myself immediately when speaking. I let sentences finish, even if they were imperfect. I trusted that clarity would come later. And something interesting happened. My speech became smoother, not more correct, smoother, more alive. Because fluency is not accuracy first. Fluency is flow. Accuracy grows inside flow, not before it. If you take one idea from today, let it be this one. Do not wait to feel ready. Let readiness grow inside the action. You don't need perfect sentences to speak. You need permission. Give yourself that permission now. I am allowed to speak imperfect English. Say it. I am allowed to speak imperfect English. Say it again and mean it. I am allowed to speak imperfect English. When you say this, You are not lowering your standards. You are removing fear. And fear is the biggest obstacle your mind faces. Another quiet truth I learned is that comparison damages learning more than mistakes ever will. Every time I compared my progress to someone else's, my motivation weakened, my attention scattered, my confidence shrank. So I stopped asking, am I better than before? And I started asking, am I more comfortable than before? Comfort is a powerful signal. It means your mind feels safe enough to stay. And staying is how learning happens. As I speak to you now, I want you to imagine your English not as a skill you are chasing, but as a companion walking beside you. Some days you walk together easily. Some days you walk slowly. But you do not abandon each other. This mindset changes everything. It turns learning into living. Before we truly finish, I want to guide you through one last gentle moment. Take a breath and say this sentence slowly, in your own voice. I am learning to trust my mind. Again, I am learning to trust my mind. Your mind has carried you through every language you already speak. It knows how to learn. It just needs patience, safety, and time. You are not late. You are not slow. You are becoming. And becoming is a process that cannot be rushed. Thank you for giving me your time, your attention, and your openness today. This was not just listening practice. This was awareness practice. This was life practice. And now, as we come to the very end, I want you to stay with this quiet feeling for just a moment longer. No need to think. No need to analyze. Just notice where you are, how you're breathing, how your body feels after listening for this long. If there is one thing I hope you carry with you from today, it is this: learning. English is not something you add to your life. It is something you gently weave into it, into your mornings, into your thoughts, into the way you describe your inner world. You do not need a perfect mind to learn well. You need a patient one, a forgiving one, a curious one. Your mind is already doing its best. Every time you listen, every time you notice a word, every time you try again after a difficult day. That counts. All of it counts. So when you leave this episode, don't ask yourself how much you learned. Ask yourself how present you were, how calm, how open, because presence is the soil where language grows. And remember this quietly. Without pressure, you are allowed to learn slowly. You are allowed to rest. You are allowed to enjoy the process. English will meet you there. Thank you for sharing this space with me. Thank you for trusting the journey, even when it feels uncertain. This is English with Thomas. I'm Thomas. Keep speaking, keep growing, and keep trusting yourself.